All right. What's up, YouTube? Now, you see the title of this video and you see the image that I have on the screen, man. Man, I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Now, you see the title, like I said, you see the image on the screen, and you see who I have added. So, you already know what we're about to go into in this video. In my last video, I said I was going to expose Andrew Wilson. And I decided to throw in another individual, one of his friends, and then I have Gematria fake news. I have Zach in there because I'm going over. I'm gonna talk about the debate and really just highlight what I think really is going on with Andrew Wilson, why he doesn't want to, give any credence to Gematria. The same thing with his old goofy buddy Jim Bob, right? Because I already know what it is with these two people. Zach probably doesn't know because he probably doesn't really know the deep history of Andrew Wilson, a lot of these guys, but I know because I've seen these dudes' history on the internet, so I know what type of time is going on with Andrew Wilson and his friend Jim Bob. I'm about to break this down. This image on the screen is going pretty much should explain a lot of the stuff now if you know, but I'm going to get into why this image is on the screen right now. Before I even get into the main topic of this video, I want to first really give a I want to give you some insight on what was my inspiration for this video. And it all started when I was scrolling through YouTube and I saw a video. And it was about, I guess, it was talking about a industry, right? Some sort of industry that is headed by, one of the small hats, one of the Jews. And the industry that I'm speaking of is, the sexual content industry, right? And I go to the comments, right? And all I see in the comments is just the synagogues. And I'm just like, bruh, here we fucking go. I'm clicking through comments. I'm seeing people do goofy shit. Oy vey. And I'm like, oh God. Okay. I mean, I'm about to, and I'm gonna have to make another video after this too, because I gotta break down this. I've been meaning to make the Jewish smoke screen video, but I'm gonna go into it briefly in this video, of course, because what we're talking about. But that was my inspiration, right? And I'm looking at the comments and I'm just reading the goofiness, and I'm seeing how people are just so like this whole JQ and man, this whole JQ stuff is insane. And the thing with this is when you really break it down, right? Because I looked at that video and I'm just laughing because it's really what made me think again of like, oh, I said I was gonna make this video on Andrew Wilson and whatnot, and it kind of tied in everything together, right? Because when it came to that debate that Andrew Wilson had with Zach, right? He 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 really him and along with Jim Bob, right? One of their problems when you really look into it and you know their history, and even when you listen to the debate he had with Jim Bob, actually, Gematria Fake News had with Jim Bob, you'll notice how he kept insinuating that Zach was a Jew, and he kept he if you don't know he kept doing the old Zachary Greenblatt stuff. That's all some Jew stuff, saying Zach's a Jew, and then the oy vey stuff. And when you really deconstruct that, it may seem like it's just a very small thing and it's not nothing that's really big, but when you really actually understand the history of these types of individuals, the history of Andrew Wilson, and the background of these type of guys, you'll understand why they do that stuff, right? Because I'm gonna explain the problem that Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob and others like him have with Zach, and it has nothing to do with the gematria. It has nothing to do with the numbers because there's no way you can deny gematria. Like Andrew Wilson sat up there on that panel for hours, and I couldn't do it. I could not suffer to listen to the whole thing. I ended up falling asleep, man. I ended up saying fuck this shit, and I turned off I went to sleep because I'm just like, bruh, he's being disingenuous. You can tell he's being disingenuous. He's asking all of these questions, and a warning for any headphone users. I might end up raising my voice in this video because I'm not gonna lie. There's really something when it comes to Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob and a lot of them that really I'm gonna like kind of semi crash out in this video. Because I found it so funny, right? Now, like I said, when it comes to Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob and what it is really with them when it comes to Zach, what's their real problem and what's their problem with his work, really, it has nothing to do with the numbers. This is all about how Zach isn't doing what they think should. Let me put it this way. When you look at the history who's running things, you understand that all roads do indeed lead to Rome. You understand it's the Jesuits that run everything. And that is something that Zach, he goes into about how it's the Jesuits that run the society, that run the world. The problem that Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob have is that he's not focusing on the Jews all day. And that gets into the image on the screen here. Blame the Jews, right? Because what you have to understand about Andrew Wilson and what you have to understand about Jim Bob is that these guys are Nazis. Yes, they are Nazis. If you know the history of these types of individuals and you see the people they rub shoulders with, and you see the racism they got going on over there, it's not an accident that they're extremely racist. Jim Bob, a degenerate racist piece of shit, along with Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson rubs shoulders, has a history of rubbing shoulders, being in the same circles as guys like Nick Fuentes. So these are the type of individuals we dealing with. And their real problem with Zach and his work, Gematria Fake News' work, is that since he's focusing on the Jesuits, right, and talking about how it's the Jesuits that run things, it's undeniable history. It's undeniable even through the numbers. So their real problem is they don't like how he's not going at the Jews all day, because their whole thing is, oh, we Nazis, we going at the Jews and we racist and fuck the blacks and it's the blacks and it's all this, right? They are white supremacists. And their whole thing is to attach on to this Nazi bullshit with the mustache man. The mustache man was a puppet. They don't even understand the irony is he was a puppet of Jesuits. So it's very funny how they following a guy who was a puppet. But that's a whole nother video. These dudes, their only problem with Zach is that he talks about the Jesuits and how they're the ones running the system, because they want it to be, it's the Jews, oy vey, Zach, because what they really believe is that Zach is a Jew who's trying to move attention from the Jews and focus on the Jesuits. I've seen them actually say this, so this isn't me just actually speculating that. I've read comments of dudes saying this about Zach. They think that he's a Jew and he's trying to move attention from the Jews. And that is all this is about. That's why Andrew Wilson acted like he couldn't understand simple fucking numbers. That's why Jim Bob was sitting up on his debate with Zach, which was another insufferable debate that made me lose a plethora of brain cells. Why he kept, just being an idiot, yelling, all this dumb shit. Very idiotic guy. Racist. So not surprising that he's a fucking idiot. And he kept doing the little inside Jew jokes, Zachary Greenblatt and the oy vey stuff. That's all like, the little like dog whistle, it's called a dog whistle, right? The little dog whistles to like, the JQ and the Jews. And what you have to understand with individuals like Andrew Wilson and individuals like Jim Bob is that all they want to do is blame the Jews. Because see, understand, if it's the Jesuits, they can't then attach it to another race of people. Because the thing with Andrew Wilson and the thing with Jim Bob and others of their ilk is that they their whole existence is about their whiteness. Their whole existence is about hatred and racism. They cannot live without something being a racial thing going against someone, hating a group of people, and all this. This is they come from a lineage of evil individuals. And I don't want to make this a racist video because I'm not saying all white people, right? Or wicked and all that, right? Um, because no, that's not the case. But we can't deny the history of this country, right? There is the history of this country and the wickedness that has been engaged in by, I would say, the majority, really, of white people in this country when it comes to slavery, Jim Crow, all this. This all culminates to the ideology you seeing of an Andrew Wilson and a Jim Bob. This white supremacist, um, regressive mindset of I'm better because I'm white. I want you to understand that Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob and all other racists like them, they're no different than a guy in a mental hospital in the corner, and and it's a padded room and he's in a straight jacket, curled up in a ball in a fetal position, screaming how a unicorn with 80 dicks has bestowed him with superpowers. They're no different than that. And I know that sounds like a very funny and laughable example, but it's really exactly the same thing. If we put that next to I'm superior because I'm white, uh uh you know and then the dude in the corner in a straight jacket screaming that he has superpowers from a unicorn, a flying unicorn with 80 dicks, those go together like a easy puzzle piece. It's the same exact thing. It's the same exact thing. It's mental. It's just mentally ill. It's mentally ill rhetoric. It's absolute delusion, and this is how these people live. They are no different than that dude in the padded room screaming about the unicorn with 80 dicks giving them powers. So we're dealing with very mentally unstable individuals, very mentally ill individuals, and this is why they couldn't. Jim Bob couldn't offer any rebuttals to Zach. He's just sitting up there just spousing nonsense and insults. He's stupid. Andrew Wilson, he has all these fucking questions, right? And see here, and this is when I'm really about to. I'm gonna try not to crash out, but I find it funny how Andrew Wilson sat up on that panel with Zach asking all of these fucking questions, all of these questions about, well, what about this number, and well, what if you can just make it equal this and that. You know what I find funny? You know what I find funny? I find it funny how Andrew Wilson had all of these questions. He had all these questions. He wants to investigate. He wants to really look deep into things. But when it comes to um, you know, pushing narratives like black people are genetically inferior and all this other dumb shit and the IQ dumb shit, Andrew Wilson, like I said, he rubs shoulders with people like Nick Fuentes. When it comes to that shit, you notice that he doesn't have any fucking questions to why the black community is in the way it's in, and why certain things are going on in this society and in this world. He doesn't want to look into the deep data and intricacies of all the things that have happened in this country in the history. He's a fucking idiot. He doesn't even know his own damn history. He doesn't even know his own history. Many of these idiots don't even know their own history. They don't even know the Bible. The Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob, so-called Christians, they're not Christians. They're Satanists. So they need to put down the Bible and pick up the Satanic Bible, because that's really what they're more in line with. But you notice all these questions he had, but when it comes to pushing negative propaganda against groups of people they despise, they don't have any questions as to um why this is this way and this way. No, it's just, oh, we hate these people, so we just gonna push simple racist rhetoric against them, right? There's not a bunch of questions when it comes to that. But you got all the questions for the truth though. See, when it comes to lies, we jumping out the window with any dumbass thing. But when it comes to truth, we gotta now sit up and have this long debate of hours and endless hours of asking the dumbest questions known to man about fucking 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. This is insane. But like I said, I think really what it all boils down to, what I said earlier, is that the real problem that Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob have is that Zach isn't focused on the Jews all day. We're not talking about it's the Jews, blame the Jews. You see the image on the screen, blame the Jews, because this is them. This is Andrew Wilson. This is Jim Bob. It's blame the Jews, man. They're holding up a sign, blame the Jews. And another thing with the Jew thing, and I'm gonna end this video after I say this last thing. Another thing with the whole blame the Jews thing is that it's a way to avoid accountability. And I'm going to use their logic, actually, because this isn't really exactly what I believe all the way, but I'm using their logic because this is the same logic they use with black people, right? I'm going to use their logic. So it's a way to avoid accountability, because if we can't make a whole new race, because the Jews are white, so they try to make them into a different race. They seem to ignore genetics when it's convenient, but any other time they want to push racist agendas when it comes to genetics, like skull phrenology and shit like that. When it comes to racism, because black people, I guess they understand how to push propaganda with that, but they don't understand genetics apparently when it comes to the Jews, because they've created a whole new race with them. But anyway, when it comes to the Jews, right, the whole thing of blaming them is that it's a way for them to avoid accountability. I'm using their logic, right? Because their logic is, black people, they blame black people for all types of shit, and black people are the worst. Whoop-de-whoop. They're the problem with this and that. So with their same logic, right, the reason they want to blame the Jews and create a whole new race is because that way they can avoid accountability. By saying it's the Jews that control everything and they the ones causing everything and all the problems on the planet, they can avoid accountability that it's their people doing it. It's white people. And this is just the truth. Like I said, I'm not trying to be racist. These are just the facts. The people ruling this planet are not the Jews. It's not no fucking no entirely new race they didn't create with this bullshit. It's the Edomites, right? So-called white people. And in order for Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob to avoid accountability and to avoid how it's their people fucking up the planet, and I'm using their logic, mind you. I don't really even believe you can just blame a whole group of people, but I'm using their logic. This is what they do to black people, so I'm gonna do it to them with their same logic. In order for them to avoid accountability within this logic that they have against black people, that same logic would have to be applied to them. So if it's white people who is the ones controlling everything and they're the ones fucking up the planet, well, then that means they have to take accountability for they people fucking up the planet. Are they gonna do that? No. Because one thing the white supremacists will never do is take accountability for their actions. They'll never do it. So they'll never acknowledge that it's them fucking up the planet, because not only then can they not blame a whole nother race of people, because all they can only do is operate through racism. They then have to acknowledge it's their people and look in the mirror and be like, hey, we gotta fix this. But they're not gonna acknowledge the problems that they have. They're gonna instead create a whole new race called the Jews, continue their racist culture of just attacking anybody who's not them, living in a delusional world where they are superior because they're white, no different than the mentally ill man in the corner of the padded room talking about a flying unicorn with 80 dicks gave him superpowers. And they're going to just continue to deny truth. This is all they're going to do. This is all they're going to do is blame the Jews 24/7, run around pushing Christian nationalism, and they don't even follow the Bible, be degenerate racists, and overall just spread nothing but more destruction. Because this whole Christian thing that Andrew Wilson is on and Jim Bob is on, I'm gonna make a separate video on that too, because I want to break down the Christian nationalism thing. They're not doing any. This isn't gonna benefit society. There's no benefit to this Christian nationalism that they're pushing, because for one, it's not really true Christian. It's not really actually the true doctrine of what a Christian is. It's more in line with Satanism. So if anything, they should be pushing Satanism. I don't know why they're holding the Bible. I don't understand this, but that's what they're gonna do. But nothing they're pushing is it benefiting society. It's all just pushing more hate. is all just pushing more degeneracy. And it's ironic because they claim that's what the Jews do, right? But oh man, oh man. And the thing is, there is like there is some stuff when it comes to the Jews and whatnot, but that they're not the fucking main they're not the main focus, right? They're not the main ones running around doing everything, right? It's all a smoke screen. Like I said, I got a video on that, but I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. This video's been long enough. This pretty much the main thing you need to take away from this video is the reason that Andrew Wilson and Jim Bob do not want to believe Gematria and believe what Zach has to say. It's really all about the whole Jew thing and the Jesuits. They don't want to, say it's the Jesuits because then it destroys their whole worldview if it's the Jews. And that's really all it comes down to, really. If you want to boil this video down, that's all it is. That's why they don't want to acknowledge it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's that childish. But blame the Jews though, right? That's all they're gonna do. That's all I gotta say for this video, man. I'm out.